Morning, Raptor Freak Alexios here. Sunday morning, so it's a Sunday special report. And today's subject is about player games missed in the NBA and how the NBA can try and do different things proactively to try and limit them, to try and allow for the best players in the NBA to be on the court as often as possible. Because once again, we're seeing it from last night. Ja Morant hurt in the game against Golden State last night when Jordan Poole grabbed his knee and shifted it to the side, and now he's going to be out. And Memphis coach Taylor Jenkins is calling it a very dirty play. He's very upset about it. They're already missing a player because of suspension the other way. Dylan Brooks got in trouble for hurting somebody. And now this has happened and is a star player. These are important players to his team, and I can understand that. And, there's a lot to this. There's all kinds of different ways that players miss games in today's NBA. It's very different than it used to be, partly because of like the pandemic and contact tracing and stuff like that. But also over the years, there's been a real trend of load management. And that's why I put Kawhi's picture on the stream for this morning, is that he's kind of been the torchbearer, the leader of the load management kind of movement in some ways, Kawhi. And that has also hurt reasons why players have missed games often and stuff like that, is that they're really, really sometimes really babying themselves and really like saying, well, this is kind of broken. Well, I don't want to hurt my future, so I'm going to sit. Whereas, there's different players that have different pain thresholds. There's different players that have different ideas of like what will take them out of being able to play or not as far as an injury. And, you see somebody like Joel Embiid who's playing with a broken face and a broken thumb. And then you may have somebody like Kawhi who may have just a slight problem and he could maybe play, but he's not choosing to play or something like that. So there is some balance to it. The Sixers got fined $50,000 for not disclosing Joel Embiid's injury status quick enough on Friday for the game against Miami. I feel like that's a really steep fine. And it's kind of messed up. Like, honestly, here we go, Sixers Nation. I'm actually on your side on this one. It's really kind of stupid, honestly, in some ways. Like, I don't understand this whole fining system in the NBA. The NBA fines way too much in all kinds of different directions. I wish they would find alternative ways to punish people instead of trying to take money from them. I was doing some research about games missed by players and different things like that. And one of the things I was looking at was games missed due to suspension by players. And then I found this whole spreadsheet that had like the total money that individual players had lost over their career due to suspensions, technicals, flagrant fouls, everything you get fined for. Every single technical that an NBA player gets is $2,000 out of their personal pocket. I don't know if you guys knew that. I thought it was $1,000, but it's been marked up to $2,000. And I was looking at Thad Young. Thad Young is a pretty good citizen as a player in the league. He's played in the league for 14, 15 years. And he has lost over his career due to fines and things like that, $40,000 of his own money. And that's not a lot for a guy who's been in the league that long. But like some players have lost way, way more. And that's crazy to me. I know that everything is different for each individual case, that, some of these fines are really important and to be handed down to people. But sometimes I feel like they're just a little overreaching and a little bit too much fines and stuff like that. But anyway, getting back to the subject of players missing games, this is a huge problem. And the main big problem is, people save up their money. People want to see the stars. And I heard recently that Kobe Bryant used to say to Vanessa Bryant that even though he was hurt, he was going to play because there were so many people that came to the game just to see him, that they saved their money up and they were coming, and it was special to see Kobe specifically. And he actually felt a real responsibility to show up and be able to play for the fans, even if he was slightly hurt, even if he maybe like today's NBA player would be like, I don't feel like playing today, coach, because I'm not well. But Kobe took it upon himself because he realized that relationship between the fans and the superstars and being out there performing for them and playing for them. So it's really a weird kind of thing. And some of it really is case by case basis. I'm sure there are many players that are out because they just physically cannot play. Like Fred VanVleet, when his hip popped against Philadelphia in that series, it was evident that the man just could not run at that point and that he can't play. But where's the line? Where's the thing where it's like, I'm pretty sure Kawhi probably could have played at some point this year. He did not play a single game this whole entire season. And I know some of it was injury, some of it, I'm not even sure what it was exactly, because I never really understood what his injury is. And the fact that this man, Kawhi Leonard, who's a certain age, can like waste young years of his life instead of playing games like what he did in San Antonio the last year he was there, and then this year and stuff like that, to me is really mystifying. Because even since he went to the Clippers from Toronto, I think he's missed 2 whole seasons out of like the 4 seasons that he's been there since he left, which is crazy. Actually, there's only been 3 seasons, and I think he's missed 2 out of the 3, something like that. So it's a real problem. It's a real problem. Whether it's because of injuries, like what we saw last night with John Morant and Jordan Poole, whether it's because of load management, because players are erring on the side of caution. Maybe it's because of contact tracing, players can't play. Maybe it's because of suspensions, because they did something dirty on the court and they're not allowed to play because of that. The NBA needs to really figure out a way they can keep their players on the court as best as they can. Now, would limiting the hard fouls and limiting the physicality, the dangerous plays help? I think so, because they kind of feed into bad injuries and stuff like that. Like, the thing with Poole and Morant last night is he had his hand on his back and he was kind of pushing him forward, and then he was wrenching his knee to the side. And I know that they're saying that that was a basketball movement and he was going for the ball and he just happened to grab his knee by accident. But the fact that he's putting force with his left hand into his back as he's pulling the knee really, to me, looks like it looks real bad. Like if you look at it, and some people are saying, oh, it's a basketball play and nothing's like that. Maybe they're Golden State fans, but that's what I'm saying. The physicality on the court may need to be reined in a bit better by the refs, that the refs are ineffective in this kind of situation, or in any kind of situation. We saw in the Philadelphia series with Toronto, they were pretty ineffective at getting the contact and things to like calm down and let them just play. That there was a lot of stuff that they just didn't call and they just let them play and stuff like that. So in some ways we like that style, and we want to see physical kind of game, but we also want to see it kind of reined in and have a balance for the safety of the players. And then they need to get even more specific about the kind of moves with your hands or your fingers. Like if your fingers come near somebody's eye, if you're hitting with an elbow or a backhand or something like that, even if you're there's no natural follow through. They can look at that and say, oh, this is pretty dirty this way. Because, that's what they did with the offensive fouls with Trae Young and James Harden. They looked and said, that's an unnatural kick out, or that's an unnatural brush off with your arm. They changed the rules this year and they start calling it like that. Well, why aren't they doing that with, flailing arms or elbows or errant fingers to the eye and things like that, and saying, well, this is kind of a bad call. I mean, this is a bad move that you did. This is very, illegal in some ways. G's here. Good to see G. As much as I love a lot of games, they may need to play less games in the season. So you think it's the grind of the 82 game season? Yeah, there's a lot of talking about that right now, that the season's too long, things like that. One of the things that Adam Silver is seriously looking at, and part of the way he looks at it to entice players to play more games, is having something like what happened in the G League this year, where there's kind of a break in the season and they have a little half season tournament. Instead of maybe having an all-star weekend, they have like a mini tournament where certain teams qualify and there's a cash prize. And that in itself, like, it'd be very similar to the one that they did in the G League this year, where they just stopped. They had 2 seasons. They had the qualifier for this mini tournament, and then they had the regular G League season afterwards. they're toying with those kind of things. And it may be that it could be that they have a break in the middle of the season that is better than the All-Star break, a little bit longer or something like that. I don't know. There has been a lot of talk about limiting the games of this year, like from 82, like bringing it down to maybe 72. They did do a 72 game season in the shortened year of the pandemic. They did a 72 game season. So I don't know. I like the amount of games, and part of it is that it's statistically, then you can kind of match up. If they play less games than they played in the 80s, it's really hard to make a comparison to like Michael Jordan's stats or Magic Johnson's stats compared to people today if they're not playing as many games. I guess you can look at the averages and stuff like that, but the total stats for sure. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of that either, G. Yeah, I know that you're kind of like saying that, but you're kind of like, because like, listen, we want more basketball, and we kind of want basketball to stay kind of in the same kind of standard parameters as it has been historically. And that shortening the season would really kind of mess that up in some ways. So maybe there's a way they can do it with a mini tournament in it and stuff like that. I don't know. There's a lot of issues to figure out with this, and there's no one good solution for any of it. They're going to have to be really, what do they do as far as like players maybe sitting when they shouldn't be? Like they make up an excuse, like, oh, it's his back calf. But do they go and get like insurance fraud examiners, and they come and like check out and say, hey, well, Kawhi, well, how are you hurt? And they look at his x-rays, they look at his medical stuff, and then they're like, okay, he shouldn't be playing right now. Or maybe they go and see and they say, well, this guy's fine to play. He's just sitting right now. Why is he not playing? Something like that seems like, because I know they got some teams in trouble for not listing the reason why players were out, and they just said something rest or something like that. The NBA hated that. The NBA hated when people were just getting load management rest games because it was, especially near the end of the season. And that's part of the reason why they made the play-in tournament, is because they wanted more teams to have to play to be competitive right up until the very end of the season. And they did a good job this year by having the play-in tournament, because that exactly happened. A lot of teams had to play right up until their very last 82nd game because it had a pertinent thing to what happens with how they finish the season, whether it's winning the division, not being in the play-in, getting in the play-in, all that kind of different stuff. So that was really successful in that way. So maybe it is that they need to keep enticing teams to have to feel like they have to play their best players, because the urgency and the importance of the games and stuff like that. But yeah, there's all kinds of different solutions they're talking about. They're talking about a cash tournament. They're talking about, one of the things that they want to do is probably, look at how they call fouls. And I really love this idea we had this week of a penalty minutes in basketball. I know it would be similar to hockey, and it wouldn't be a thing where you get a man advantage or anything like that, where you would be 4-on-5 or anything like that. Let's say that, Jordan Poole jerks Ja Morant's knee, and it shows that he may be out for a while. Maybe Jordan Poole has to sit out a whole quarter. He's not allowed to play for a full quarter because this guy's hurt now or something like that. Or, and he's just, him individually is not available to the team specifically as that player that they may need because he's in the rotation. And that's how you punish the team, is that you get penalty minutes. That the player that did the infraction, the overly aggressive, possibly dangerous play, has to go sit for like 5 to 10 minutes of the game, depending on how bad the injury, the thing was. Even if the guy didn't get hurt, if somebody's hitting somebody right across the face or something like that, boom, 3-minute penalty. You're not available for 3 minutes of this game. You have to make a substitution and put another person from your team off the bench into the game for you. And then it's a clock timer, just like in hockey. And then boom, 3 minutes is up. Then the coach can bring them back in after that, time is put in. I like that idea for some reasons, because it will really dissuade players from being dirty and making plays that may be very dangerous to people. Tom Duke saying, morning, this is such a tough issue to solve. It really is, because there's a couple of different forces and factoring into this. The pandemic is a big one. Like, you can't do anything if contact tracing is if somebody gets tested positive and they can't play all of a sudden, boom, that's a big problem. And that's part of the reason why I'm glad they extended the rosters and allowed for more people to be involved. But also, as Nick Nurse put this week, you really need to have a good 7 through 13 on your bench. That you need these good quality players behind your core players, because at any time you could lose a couple of your core players for different reasons, like some of the ones that I've been mentioning here, whether it's an injury, whether it's contact tracing, whether it's a suspension, whether it's just whatever it is. That you need to have good quality bench, next man up mentality in today's NBA. Because in this past year, I think there were more player games missed in a whole entire year, even then, like the year after the pandemic, when we started playing again in the Tampa year. I think there were more games missed overall by players this year, and especially by top tier all-star level top players. You look at Kawhi, no games played this year. Ben Simmons, no games played this year. How many games did Kyrie play this year? He played like 40 games. LeBron played maybe half the season. There's so many big name stars of the NBA that just aren't on the court, and for various reasons. And this is a problem Adam Silver needs to fix, because then people may not want to come to the games because they're not going to be there anyway because they're lazy and they're sitting on the bench, or they're hurt, or they're always hurt because there's dirty plays, or that kind of reasoning and stuff. So they got to really look at it and get the best quality product out there. And that is ensuring that the best players in the NBA are actually able to play and are actually out there. And for whatever reason, maybe it's a case by case basis, they come and look at each one and say, well, why is Ben Simmons not out there? Oh, it's because he's in a dispute with his team and he wants to get traded. Well, that's kind of bullshit. That's kind of, how can they affect that to cause that to maybe change? I mean, a holdout is a holdout. It's a very tough thing to deal with. G says, problem is refs have way more control that way. I'm not necessarily against the refs having control, because honestly, if they're good refs, that's good. And if we can get the old guard out, the ones that may be kind of crooked and doing weird things with bets and stuff like that, then it shouldn't be a problem if they're on the up and up. And, more and more things. Let's see. G says they may pick and choose whom to penalize. Yeah, I mean, I think if they just really go by the book, like, they are really going to hit a shitstorm soon of like wondering whether they're on the up and up, whether these refs can be trusted. And they're going to be more and more even trying to be down the line and trying to call things fairly in different ways, because there's going to be a lot of eyes on them analyzing whether they're being fair or not, because there's going to be a lot more scrutiny with the Donaghy stuff coming up again, and different people talking about all the different things about NBA reffing that have a black shadow, a bad thing about it, whether it's the betting scandal, whether it's just like them helping, or like even the Scott Foster versus Chris Paul thing is really bad. So they may overdo it and say, we're really going to be down the line. I think the refs having more control isn't a bad thing. That in fact, some ways they need to have more control, because in some ways this year they kind of let things just go wild. Like, oh, we're going to swallow the whistle and let them just play. And for some of the season, it was fun. And it really did cater towards the Raptors style of play. It really helped us. In fact, Nick Nurse talked about it this year, about the different stages of the year with the officiating, about how in the beginning of the year, they just let it go. Everything was free and open, and the Raptors loved it. But then they kind of started bringing the whistle back into it, and they had to adjust. And it was really on a night-by-night basis. The Raptors had to analyze whether the referees were going to be calling a lot or not calling a lot of stuff, and adjusting their game plan accordingly and stuff. But yeah, they're going to always pick and choose who they're going to penalize, G. So it's kind of like, yeah, I can see what you're saying, that would be worse because they can have more powers that way. But I don't think so in some ways. I think that maybe it could be something in conjunction with the head office people they're watching from refereeing central and Secaucus. And maybe they see something, and maybe they have a person who's charged who's not actually on the court, and they see it from away on the TV and stuff. And then they say something like, you need to give penalty minutes to Jordan Poole for 5 minutes of the game now after that play. We reviewed it here, And, it may be that they don't even do it right away during the game because the challenges and all the different things that have been happening have slowed down the game. It could be that they continue to play and then they send it to them a little bit later and say, because of the play earlier with that, Jordan Poole has to sit 5 penalty minutes on the bench, and then he'll be available again to be coming back into the game, something like that. I don't know. We're thinking creatively here. We're kind of just like brainstorming an idea with the penalty minutes thing that I've been talking about recently and stuff, but it may not be feasible for all kinds of reasons. Tom Duke's saying Pascal's number one and Fred was third in the NBA for most minutes played this season. We would lead the league in sin bin minutes. What's sin bin minutes? You think we'd have the most minutes on the bench for penalties? I don't know. But yeah, these guys played way a lot this year. And it was just that we had such a top heavy rotation that was eaten up all the time for getting more and more reps. And next year, we need to maybe limit, especially Fred. Fred, I think more so because he may be more apt to kind of injury stuff just because of his position and his history with different things with his body. Pascal, otherwise, though, like he looked like he could run the whole year and he wouldn't get hurt at all. He looks like a Superman in some ways. But yeah, I don't know. Like as far as things with us and our team, would we get a lot of penalty minutes? Maybe. I don't know. But that's just an interesting idea I've had about that. And then as far as like the other thing with the load management, they already do this. Like if a team puts a real bullshit reason for why a player is sitting out and it's just really kind of a rest game or something like that, they'll find the team for not making the player available when they could have been available because of this effect of not having that kind of thing. Tom Duke saying, you go to the sin bin in rugby and other sports when called for some infraction. Okay, the sin bin is the penalty box. That's what I thought it was. I just hadn't heard that particular term, sin bin. I was like thinking, is this like Cinnabon or something? Cinnabon, yum. But okay, so hopefully the pandemic winds down more and there's less and less kind of problems with contact tracing. No more outbreaks on teams where you're like missing 4 or 5 players all of a sudden and you're going to have to go raid the G League or something like that. Hopefully just different things will trend better towards bringing down the games missed by players in the NBA. And whether they can solve things as far as like not encouraging dangerous, like flagrant hurting kind of plays where they injure people, whether it's Dylan Brooks or whether it's Jordan Poole, whether it's Embiid, whether it's Pascal, it doesn't matter who it is and it's not even like it's hard to tell whether it's intentional or unintentional or something like that. And some people have said, well, it doesn't matter if it's intentional or unintentional. It should just fit equally to the person that gets put out. Like if, let's say, Ja Morant misses a game, then Jordan Poole maybe should be mirroring when he's out in that kind of way. Or it's kind of like because people were talking about Grayson Allen and Alex Caruso earlier this season. The way he took out Alex Caruso halfway through the season messed up Chicago's year in a lot of ways. They were saying, well, why doesn't Grayson Allen have to sit out the same time as him? But then again, that problem kind of adds to the whole problem that we're talking about on here. That means another player is sitting out and not available to be in the game. Like we said, there's no real clear solutions on this. It's probably a combination of different kinds of things they need to do. As G said, maybe shorten the season. I've talked about penalty minutes. I've talked about more severe penalties for dangerous play as far as like hitting out or doing things that could possibly hurt someone. Like one of the big ones that I think is really, really dangerous and they need to call more is hitting somebody in the air when they are going to the basket. It's like coming in and either undercutting them or pushing them while they're in the air and they're turning horizontal. And that is really super dangerous. That's another movement that they should really look at and try and penalize players if they're doing anything like that also. So just in general, just wanted to talk about this subject just a bit and talk about all the sides of it. Why do players miss games in the NBA today? And are they missing games when they could be playing? Are they? Is there a way we can try and limit injuries so players aren't missing so many games because of serious injury? Is there a way that hopefully the pandemic will get better and there won't be so many games missed related to that also? So no easy answers for these questions. and just putting more out of there into the discussion. I do kind of like the idea of the penalty minutes and see how maybe that could possibly be experimented with. Maybe they do it in the G League real quick one year just to try it out, and then we see. Who knows? G says they need to stop superstar treatment. Other teams need to adjust and adapt to try and overcompensate. Yeah, I agree with this one completely. I think that if your referees are trying to get across the image of being fair and just, that they can't be treating people like golden boys, whether it's a whole team or certain individual players like Luca or LeBron or Joel. They can't be given the golden boy treatment because that's not fair in itself, and that does lead to perception around the league that the refs are crooked when they are doing things to help certain players that are kind of media stars for them that they want, and that kind of thing. So I agree with this. I think that whatever they do to Joel Embiid, they should be doing to somebody like Thad Young or somebody who's at a bench player who's like not as important, on any team. So I really do agree with this. The unbalanced kind of treatment, is not fair, as far as like if they're a superstar or not and stuff like that. Just stop doing it. I understand if getting foul calls because you're a superstar and you get the line and stuff like that, but the thing I'm talking about really is looking the other way when a superstar player is being dirty and not calling the dirty plays on them because you're worried about them leaving the game and that being a problem. If they're leaving the game because of that kind of stuff, that's important. Because if they're being dirty and dangerous out there, they need to be called for it, just like an average NBA player would get called for it. G saying fast break, hard fouls should stop. There are ones that are obvious they are not going for the ball, but making it look like they are. Players already in the air should not be hit. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a couple of times this happened this season. The one with Scotty, with Caleb Martin was a good example. There's been a couple of them where guys are up in the air, like Gary Trent. I've seen him up in the air trying to lay it in or dunk it, and somebody just comes underneath him and they push his legs or they undercut him. And then all of a sudden they're on their side and they're landing flat horizontally on their side on the ground. That's when people get hurt. Oh, yeah, that's when people get hurt. Tom Duke saying, yeah, those hard fouls on guys should be limited. That Brooks foul on Gary Payton Jr. seemed like a good old fashioned hard foul, but maybe that should not be part of the game. It's a way. There's a way of doing it. Like I don't know. They've really got to get good at kind of trying to figure out how to like discern whether it's dirty or not. Like sometimes there's a way of just holding your ground and just like trying to stand your ground and hold up like this, and then it looks dirty, but there's some motion. Like, and especially like what you're saying, it's like it has to be going for the ball. You can't just like push a guy because he's got the ball and he's ahead of you and he's about to lay it in. That's really dirty. And there's a lot of guys still doing that in the league in different ways. It's really kind of messed up and stuff like that. So it's all a lot of it's judgment calls and stuff like that. You have to be a really good referee and understand these kind of things and possibly intent. Like one of the things the refs really look at now is weight and like whether they're putting their weight into things, and that's how they determine whether they're actually putting intent or they're actually being dangerous, or it was like really, something that was an accident. Is like, well, they didn't really put his weight in and stuff like that. But they need to be scrutinized like each play in certain ways a little bit better and really kind of understand. I don't know what the easy answer to this is. There is no easy answer to this, but we do know that there is an issue with players not being at games and showing up and getting the best NBA product because of the various issues that cause players not to be there. And it's especially evident this past season. Anyway, y'all, it's just a half-hour little Sunday special report, just talking about this issue and dilemma in the NBA and how maybe possibly they can get better results in future seasons of the NBA, maybe starting next year. Any of these suggestions, they're not copyrighted NBA, so steal my ideas if there's any of them good. I know they're probably not original. I'm sure other people have come up with some of these ideas themselves, but it is what it is. We just want the best product and the best basketball out there. Oh, Tom Duke saying, have you said hug a mama today? Happy Mother's Day. Yes, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I don't know if you can hear me. Maybe you hear me right now. Say happy Mother's Day again to my mom. And to all the other mothers out there and different people out there and stuff like that. Hold your loved ones as close as you can and show them appreciation and love in every kind of way, especially your mom. Your mom's important. All right, y'all. Happy Mother's Day. Have a great Sunday, and I'll be back tomorrow with a Monday memory. We'll be talking about the second game of the season against the Boston Celtics. When we went there, and Scotty Barnes won his first game of his NBA career in Boston on the Boston home court. All right, guys. Appreciate it, Tom Duke, G, everybody for being in here and talking to me today. Y'all have a great Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time.